So one side you have earthenware. What's the positives of earthenware? Well, it's porous. The molecules are kind of far apart, so it diffuses heat very well. You can also color it because it's porous, and the glaze can stick to it and go deep into the body. The bad news is, because it's so porous, it's not very resistant to mechanical shock, which is the banging and clanging that you get, or thermal shock, which is if something goes from very hot to very cold, or vice versa. On the other end of the spectrum would be porcelain, white porcelain. Porcelain is fired at a very high temperature. The molecules are very tight together. The good news is it's very resistant to mechanical shock. And you can make very ornate porcelain pieces because it's really, really strong because the molecules are tight together. The bad news is the molecules are so tight together that heat doesn't diffuse heat. Heat can't go through it very well. You better watch out. This guy wants to buy something.
Okay.
And because the molecules are so tight together, you can't color it. That's why it's predominantly white. Somewhere in the middle is a stoneware. Stoneware is pretty good in terms of thermal shock, mechanical shock. You can color it pretty well. Distributes heat very well. But better than all these, of course, is Emile Henry. It's less than 1% porous, but you can still make vibrant color. It still diffuses heat very well, and it's very resistant to thermal shock and mechanical shock. So you could take these dishes and take them from the freezer, make something ahead of time, put them into a 500-degree oven, they won't break. You can actually, what we do in the laboratory is you take it from a 500-degree oven and they pour freezing cold water on it, it won't break. You can't do that with a lot of products. It will not craze. And crazing is an interesting thing, because crazing actually happens in the firing process. Crazing happens when the body of this dish shrinks more so than the glaze, and then you get tearing. So, and you won't see it immediately when it first comes out. You see it later on, because this thing is always expanding and contracting when you use it at home. It expands when you put it in water, because the water goes into the body, and it contracts when you put it into a hot oven, because any water and moisture is in it. So over the expansion and contraction, that's when you'd see the crazing. But because these pieces, the body and the glaze shrink at the same rate, there is no crazing, so you never have to worry about that.
Is that when it cracks? It cracks without breaking?
Yeah. Dishwasher. That's, people always say, can I put it in the dish?
We sell to a lot of restaurants, and that will tell you two things. One, they have industrial dishwashers that work at a high heat with heavy detergents, no problem. And secondly, the beating that you get in a restaurant, they're using it 18 hours a day, and the guys in the kitchen, it's not their dishes, you know, so they use them. So that's also part of the Ceradon process, is the shapes and how they're made. And Jacques actually worked, one of his sons works in the aeronautics industry, and he took these shapes into the simulators to see how they were, where the weak points is, and has changed the shapes periodically to match that, so they're very resistant to mechanical shock. Then you have so easy to clean. Why are they easy to clean? Well, I can tell you, I have a charge. Funny bit. So you know how Pyrex looks nasty after you use it a few times? That's because glass, of course, is heated up very high, so it turns into a liquid. Kind of like the slip idea, but then it's shot into a metal mold. But if you looked at metal, like any of your metal cookware, under a magnifying glass, it actually looks, I call it corduroy. It looks like corduroy. There's places for the food to hang on to. With the Emile Henry, the particles of glass are sprayed on there, and then it's heated, but there's nothing covering it, so it's really smooth. It melts and it keeps like a glass exterior, but it's really, really smooth. So it's wipe clean. So you could make the nastiest lasagna in the history of mankind. Burn it bad.
It's tasty though.
It was tasty, but it was nasty to clean up. And you just put a little, dishwasher liquid, put some hot water, and leave it for 10 minutes, and it's wiped clean. I do trainings and people are like, yeah, I know, I've done that, so people really love that. These glazes are so strong that you could cut into them and it won't scratch with your knife, so you don't have to worry about cutting in your pie dish or your loaf dish. In terms of real heat distribution, this is a good little chart because it'll show you, like metal doesn't diffuse the heat very well. Wherever the heat source is, it goes straight through, so metal works pretty quickly. Glass, this is the heat source, you get a little bit better diffusion, and this is Ceradon. Here's the heat, and here's the diffusion all through the piece. If you turn it into a mechanical formula, Emile Henry scores a 192, and metal Bakeware is a 7. That's the difference in terms. So your soufflés are going to be higher, your Your pie crusts are going to be brown
They're so
and
crisp.
crispy.
That's my
and food is a lot about texture too, you know.
It's a visual thing also.
Yeah, and a visual thing.
If your pie crust is pale white,
or if it's overcooked, or certain parts of it are overcooked, and it has no moisture and it's really dry, and you're like, this is very good pie, Aunt Martha. But it's terrible. And especially you get a lot of beginning pie makers, or people only make pie once a year.
Thanksgiving.
In Thanksgiving, you could say, okay, you want a pie dish that's almost going to guarantee that your crust is going to come out well. Use this.
I tell people, make your macaroni and cheese in it. Make your this, that, if you're oven baked frittata or something in it.
We do all our vegetables in our pie plate at home.
Okay. There was at one time a quiche dish.
Yeah.
Why not anymore?
Well, we sell one in the U.S., but Williams-Sonoma, they've made a selection of what they want to sell.
Is there anything special that's coming up that we should know about in advance?
A lot of this stuff is pretty new to you guys. One of the newest pieces is this. This is completely designed by Williams-Sonoma, a new breakfast dish. They did the whole things themselves. These are all new redesigns, the ovals and the rectangles with the ruffled edge.
Yeah, this whole everything is all
all new. This is the 8-inch pie dish that we talked about earlier. The 9-inch pie dish, called a deep dish pie dish, so it actually most of the time takes filling in a half for that piece. This will fit a 9-inch pie recipe, which is important because an amateur is going to come in and say, no, the recipe says 9 inch, I can't use this. But they can use this because Emile Henry tend to be very deep dishes. And also, sometimes you want a smaller pie or a quiche or something like that. So you have the 8 and the 9, and of course there's also a difference in prices. And just to give you a brief on this is the artisanal line. It's exclusive to Williams-Sonoma also. This is the 1880 catalog. Jacques Henry, the 5th generation owner's great-great-grandfather's catalog from 1880. And these are the pieces that they had in 1880 that Williams-Sonoma saw and really liked. In 1880 they only half glazed it to save money. And people didn't care. But of course now we've put a clear glaze on the bottom so it prevents food from being absorbed into it. So this is exclusive to Williams-Sonoma.
And these are dishwasher safe as well?
Yeah, they have all the same properties as the other pieces. Yeah, and so you have your breakfast set, which is over there, your tabletop items, your bakeware items. Is this salt pig over here?
Salt pig's on the other side.
Now,
pig in the butter pot.
These are just tureens. You wouldn't want to put this on a stovetop.
No,
Okay.
no. And we're going to go over and talk about the stovetop for this. Really different. It's important that the consumer knows the difference between the two. You know, when in the most rudimentary fashion, I say, this is the white clay, that's the black clay between the two. So let's jump over to the flame top.